A big pull for players to get into Star Citizen is its ships. They let us engage in a variety of gameplay loops in a way unlike any other game. Being able to shift from mining to trading to dogfighting, all while exploring finely crafted ship interiors, planets, and cities, is truly on a scale of its own. Many ships are very well designed, others not so much, but they all have a gold standard pass that will be performed on them. For reference, this is a design touch-up and addition of physicalized components to all ships, meaning things like generators and computers have a physical location on every ship, where it can be interacted with or even destroyed. This is not inherently the final balancing step of any ship, but more like the final design and layout. There are many ships that share roles, but all have something unique about them, something no other ship brings to the table in quite the same way. A Valkyrie is not a Prowler, which is not a Harbinger, which all pale to the mighty Argo Cargo. So in the mess of light fighters, the Hawk defines itself as the de facto dedicated bounty hunting ship. Something that is going to let you take in your enemy warm or cold. The goal being not to talk about combat or fight balance, as this is always in flux and influenced by a multitude of factors. Especially with master modes and weapon changes coming. It's a ship that doesn't have many lookalikes. I've used it extensively since I've got it, and the only thing that keeps me flying it more is the lack of gold standard features, which is one reason why I wanted to make this video. To go over the bells and whistles as well as the layout optimization that would make flying the Hawk a unique and enjoyable experience from the point of view of a daily flyer. Taking to the cockpit and front of the ship is the area where I would like to see the most physical change and polish. These folding plates on the bottom of the seat are cool, but take up a lot of space. As seen here, it folds into the ship rather than opening outwards like many of Anvil's more practical pilot seats. I have created a 3D model to showcase the design changes I would like to see with a gold standard pass of the Hawk, as well as my prisoner pod design. Starting from the front of the ship, you can see this little ladder that is extended out on the side wing. I believe a little maintenance ladder like this would be very handy, because for one, you can fold it up pretty easily, it doesn't have to take up a lot of space, and being a solo flying ship, you will want to be able to do some maintenance on your ship. The Hawk is very likely to get the components on the top of the ship, and even if there's the little component elevators that extend the components up or out, it's going to be really hard to do any maintenance from the ground, so being able to get on top of the Hawk I think would be important. Going closer to the front of the ship, I have redesigned the chair elevator. In particular, the way that it stores itself now makes it difficult to fit anything else in this bottom compartment of the ship. My redesign is pretty simple. It just extends the rail down so the chair doesn't have to do as much folding or extending. And the plate we can see flips outward on some hinges, and the space can be more optimally used behind the chair. And so for that, we have the personal storage compartment here. One of the things that is missing from the Hawk is its personal armory, as this is one of the selling points of the Hawk. This is also very integral to the design of the Hawk as a solo bounty hunting ship. This is just a big open compartment at the moment. I haven't put any dividers in there, but you can see this little pill shape here is a human scale reference that I made. There's definitely enough room here for a gun rack and possibly one of the more traditional suit lockers, or maybe a cubed storage location where you put the helmet in one box, the arm pieces in another box, something kind of like that. And there should be a little space even still for personal items or effects to be stored, which will be handy for storing any parts that you might have for on-site repairs of your Hawk, any medical equipment or additional ammo, which all will be very important. Going to the back, there's a slight change I wanted to see with the prisoner pod even before we get to the prisoner storage. And that is including a little 1/8 SKU container slot on the very rear of the pod. The reason for this is because I would like to see the ability to store our prisoners' effects separate from our own. You may ask, where did the landing gear go? And why is the prisoner pod at such a horizontal angle? I put the prisoner pod at that angle just for clarity. I didn't want to have it maybe get muddled with how it is articulating down, and I realize it has a little bit of clipping here, but these sizes are just a guesstimation on my point. I don't know how big the prisoner pods would be, and the arms themselves could be made to be smaller with more points of articulation. This is just kind of like a white box concept design. The landing gear of the pod is just stored where the seat would normally pop out in the current iteration of the Hawk. So pops out at the very end of the pod, which, when it is angled properly, does not need to extend out very far. So you can have a lot of support and structure down there that doesn't need a lot of movement. Going back further, we can see the redesign I have of the Hawk's prisoner storage system. This new prisoner pod extends the armor plating out so that it looks somewhat like a cargo hatch. I chose this as a nice way to visually communicate that the prisoners are your cargo. I've redesigned this pod so that there are two articulating arms that can move out of the pod and grab a prisoner's cryopod with some clamps. The arms will then fold back in, obviously, and once the pod is held in position, these external clamps will push in, and those will hold the pod for the rest of the trip. The arms release the pod and go back to a central position. The main advantage of this design is it's a little more space efficient, and it allows you to fit two pods, one on the port side, one on the starboard side, in the rear of the Hawk. Now, there's a very specific reason why I would want the Hawk to have an increased prisoner capacity of 2 instead of the current 1, and that is co-pilots. The Hawk is very likely to run into enemy ships that have more than one pilot in them. If a Hawk is going up against a Cutlass, it's probably going to go up against at least 2 people, maybe 3, if it is fully staffed. Even in this case, the Hawk cannot bring everyone back in one trip, and as a solo ship, I think it is important to try and get as much value out of every trip as possible. Thus, increasing the capacity to 2 allows the Hawk to actually take a pilot and co-pilot, or at least a second high-value target, from a ship that they have taken down. I believe this doesn't infringe on the capabilities or competitive nature of other bounty hunting ships, as the Avenger Stalker is still a great support ship, able to carry 6 prisoners, and the Blue and now the Zeus 2 have much greater prisoner carrying capacity. The Hawk is not gaining so much prisoner capacity that it is muscling anything out, but it is allowing it to be a more competitive solo bounty hunting ship. There is something else I would like to see with the Hawk that is not visual, and that is some shielding from scanning. I don't think the entire Hawk needs it, but the prisoner pod I believe should be shielded from scanning, at least a little bit, so that no one ever knows who you are transporting or if you are transporting anything. Primarily, any good bounty hunter knows that the more information in your hands and the less on your enemies, the better. Secondly, bounty hunting is done on the behalf of different factions, so your target faction or even opposing factions may have a vested interest in certain individuals not being brought in. Any heat you can avoid by not broadcasting who you've captured, the better. Because it is important to remember, bounty hunting is not inherently legal, and there's going to be a lot of competition for higher value targets, because information is key in the bounty hunting industry. I don't want to make it sound like these changes are necessary for the Hawk to be a competitive ship. I think the Hawk is going to do fine one way or another, but I do believe that these changes would help support the gameplay of the Hawk, especially since it is such a specialized ship that doesn't have any internal storage like, say, an Avenger, and you really cannot branch out from its intended role. These changes, I believe, would help strengthen the intended role and make the Hawk a truly fantastic bounty hunting ship. The Hawk is one of my favorite ships, and I'm always going to be flying it, regardless of how it changes. I'm very excited to see a gold standard iteration of the Hawk, and with the ISC showing off the prisoner pod change, that might be sooner than even I was thinking. Gold passes are a chance to have quality of life improvements added to any ship, so how best to get these changes than to talk about them? The Hawk is a cool and distinct ship that leverages numerous weapon mounts and a built-in EMP to gain combat advantage and subdue their target. I enjoy taking it out, and it is my most frequently flown ship for PvE or even PvP. It isn't topping the charts anywhere, but once weapons receive variety and loadouts aren't just repeaters outclassing everything else, I'm sure it will get stronger. But that's why I spoke of gold standard additions and some quality of life changes to the ship. In closing, I'd like to know what you think. Do you agree these changes would make a successful gold standard pass? Or is there something else you'd like to see? If you like this video, I'd appreciate letting me know with a like or comment. But if you have a ship that you love, and it's missing its gold standard features, I implore you to spark up your own discussion about it. Let's talk about the ships we love, and what we want to see changed or add to them for their final coat of polish. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching.